We start with our top story today, and that is Donald Trump's new sweeping tariffs. Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney says he is disappointed after US President Donald Trump signed an executive order raising tariffs on Canadian goods to 35% from 25%. Carney warned the new levy will hit lumber, steel, aluminium and auto industries, but vowed Ottawa would act to protect jobs and diversify markets. Meanwhile, US President Donald Trump has also raised tariffs on select Canadian goods from 25% to 35%, saying Canada must pay a fair rate. Let's listen in.
Well, they have to pay a fair rate. It's all. It's very simple. They have been charging very, very high tariffs to our farmers, some over 200%, and they've been treating our farmers very badly. They've been treating our country very badly for years. They want a lot of things from our country, and for years we did it. We basically protect them with our military. They spend very little money on their military, as you know, not an acceptable amount of money.
Thursday's order raises US duties on nearly 70 economies to as high as 41%, while delaying implementation for 1 week. Countries striking deals included Japan, the European Union, South Korea, Vietnam, and Britain, while Taiwan vowed to push its 20% levy lower. Here's what the Taiwanese President Lai said during a press briefing.
谈判到目前为止，虽然已经获致阶段性的成果，由32%调降为20%，但20%从一开始就不是台湾谈判的目标。我们希望在后续的谈判当中，争取台湾更有利、更合理的税率。那这一部分，美国政府也表达意愿跟台湾进行谈判。
Thailand welcomed a revised 19%, saying it boosts competitiveness. Let's listen in to what the Thai finance minister said on the issue.
อย่างที่ผมเคยเรียนนะครับไม่ว่ามีปัญหาเรื่องภาษีทรัมป์หรือไม่โจทย์ที่สำคัญของประเทศไทยที่สุดเราต้องทำงานครับเพื่อเพิ่มขีดความสามารถในการแข่งขันทำให้ต้นทุนสินค้าที่ผลิตในประเทศไทยถูกลงได้ประโยชน์2อย่างก็คือทำให้สินค้าที่ผลิตในไทยเมื่อถูกแล้วผู้บริโภคก็ได้ราคาถูกเมื่อส่งออกแล้วก็แข่งขันได้นั้นการทำเหล่านี้มีปัญหาอะไรต้องทำบ้างต่อให้มีปัญหาเรื่องทรัมป์ก็ต้องทำอันนี้สิ่งที่เข้ามาขอให้เราทำเนี่ยก็เผอิญเป็นสิ่งเราควรจะทำอยู่แล้วถ้าส่วนใหญ่
We are now joined by our two guests today to discuss Donald Trump's ongoing tariff war. We're joined by Sharad Kohli, who's an economist. He's based in the Indian capital of New Delhi. And we're also joined by Andrew K.P. Lung, who's a China strategist. He joins us live from London. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us on the program. Andrew, I wanted to start with you. Donald Trump has placed high levies on some developing countries, some higher than others. What are your views on how these new tariffs are going to affect these countries, especially developing ones coming out of, for example, Southeast Asia?
First of all, the whole Trump rhetoric about tariffs is totally misguided. Most of all, he's focusing only on the trade imbalance in goods, whereas the United States enjoys huge surpluses on services with a host of other countries, including China. I mean, China suffers a huge deficit in services vis-a-vis the United States, for example, finance and professional services and so on. Now, secondly, he thinks that tariffs is going to bring jobs back to the United States. Well, that's a pipe dream because the costs of production in the United States are so high, much, much higher than almost all of his trading partners. Thirdly, he thinks that tariffs is only will bring a lot of money back to the United States, which is true. I mean, tariffs raises revenue, but at the end of the day, the costs are going to be passed on to the American consumers. Because if with such high tariffs, companies around the world are not going to make any money. And if they're not going to make money, why should they export goods to the United States? So if you hike the tariff rates, the importers have to raise prices. And then the question is that who is going to bear the cost of these higher prices, if not partly the importers and mostly the American consumers. So that's first of all, the rhetoric is totally twisted and misguided. Now, secondly, as far as the trading partners are concerned, it depends on the bargaining chips the trading partners have. Some poor countries do not have any bargaining power at all. For example, some developing countries in Latin America or in Africa, well, they can't buy all the expensive goods from the United States. So they've got to take it, like it or not.
Yes.
But that doesn't apply to China, because China is about the only country with a unique stranglehold over the Achilles heel of the United States, which is the rare earths.
Andrew, we'll come back to China just in a brief moment. Apologies for interrupting you. We're also joined by our guest Sharad Kohli, who's an economist. I first want to focus on Canada, Sharad. Of course, overnight, their tariff has increased by 10%. What kind of effect do you think this is going to have on one of the US's closest allies? Also, it's one of its highest trading partners, and also, of course, its neighbour. Some have linked this move to Canada's recognition or future possible recognition of the Palestinian state. But what implications is this going to have both on the American and both on the Canadian economy?
Well, greetings, Thomas, and greetings to the viewers of NewsX. I loved what Andrew said, you know, the President Trump rhetoric which is going on. And he's actually, this is self-destructive, if you ask me. As an economist, you know, as he rightly said, this is going to be passed on to the consumers, to the people of America. You will see in the next 4 to 8 weeks, the prices of all essential goods going up. Because Canada is a country which is the largest trading partner, Canada and Mexico combined together. They are the largest trading partners. In fact, Canada is the largest trading partner, and practically everything that is used in America, some part of it is coming from Canada. So I fail to understand, because you said probably it's about recognition of the state of Palestine, or it has got something to do with Greenland. It's got something to do with God knows what, because President Trump wants it to be the 50-something state of America, and which Canada is not yielding. But what about the rest of the world? Is there a hidden issue behind every country? This is looking like a game of roulette, you know, where you see what number do you get. Just move the needle, and whatever number, 35%, 25%, 19%, 20%, 27%, what is this going on? I've been in the world of economics, Thomas, for 35 years now. Never have I seen, and no principle of economics can be done with a gun on your head. Can you do business with gun on my head? Trade evolves out of demand and supply between two countries. Trade evolves out of what you make at a lesser price, what I make at a lesser price. Trade evolves out of necessities of the two countries. Trade evolves out of diplomacy between the two countries. You know, when has trade evolved out of deadlines? You do it by this date. You do it for that product. You do it at this percentage. I don't think trade can evolve on these principles. And what is President Trump talking about as far as Russia is concerned? You know, Canada has been its neighbor for a very long time. We call Canada as the younger brother of America. President Trump has to assess the situation on ground,
yes,
whether its economy can survive without the goods being imported from Canada, 1. 2, can the economy of America survive by importing expensive goods after the tariff I'm talking about? Can it survive? Can the people of America afford to buy those goods? The answer is no. And you know how I proved this point? 2 days ago, Jerome Powell, the Fed chairperson, the FOMC, which constitutes 11 members in America, 9 of them voted, Thomas, this is very important. 9 of them voted not to reduce the interest rates in America. You know for what reason? Because inflation is hovering over America at this point of time. You can imagine if it feels inflation is hovering, what's going to happen after 4 weeks or 8 weeks when these tariffs come to the ground? So I think President Trump must understand this sooner than later, Thomas.
Yes, thank you very much, Sharad, for that insight. Andrew, I want to bring you back in here. We've got an August the 12th deadline coming in the next just under 2 weeks. This deadline looms, as you were talking about previously. What leverage does China have over the United States in these upcoming talks?
China is in a very good position now because China has found the Achilles heel of the United States and to maintain a unique stranglehold. No other countries in that position in terms of rare earths, because these rare earths are very rare by definition, and they found that they're embedded in a host of products, ranging from mobile phones, from electric cars, and also to F-35 fighters. And it really depends not so much on the supply, even though China controls about 60 or 70% of the world's supply, but then the stranglehold is on the processing, because China controls over 95% of the processing of all these rare earths. And then the processing depends on the individual products, individual rare earths for specific products. And the process takes years and decades to perfect. And they're very complicated, highly polluting, and they've been outsourced to China for decades. So this is unlikely to change. And that's why when Trump first went back to the White House, the first thing he wanted the rare earths in Greenland.
Yes.
And he's setting his eyes on the green earths in Ukraine. I mean, that shows that he's exposing his Achilles heel, and that's China's trump card.
Yes.